And then I do a lot of instrument building for him and stuff as well. So I did a bunch of sound design and instrument building for this DC show that I began to tell you about, DMZ, which is coming on HBO Max next month. I'm credited as score producer on that. I also wrote about 45 minutes worth of music for the show. And
wow.
And built all the instruments that the team used to score the show. And then now we've started up on David Simon's new show, who's the creator of The Wire. David Simon and Reynald Marcus Green, the guy who directed King Richard, which Kris did. I did a little synth programming on that, but I was much lighter involved on that one. So Ray's real tight on Kris, and like they're real tight and loves his work. So Ray was trying to loop him in. David and George Poncanos don't usually do score in their shows because they're more kind of in the verite world. So yeah, I ended up doing like, again, a bunch of instrument building, and then Kris is just a little bit busy. So it ended up kind of falling into my lap. So I've been doing all the additional music for that. So there was a big question as to whether or not there was even gonna be music in this show. But we just got I looped through approvals with Kris in the first episode and just sent everything off to production the day before yesterday, and no notes.
Dope.
No notes from production on the writing at all. So for that one, I'm doing like, instrument building, writing, mixing. And then what else? So me and Ben and his partner Cindy Williams have a band. They have a band that I'm co-producing and writing with them on called Butterfly Black. And the first single of that comes out tomorrow, in fact, which is going to fucking rip. I went to Oklahoma City for a week. The ballet was doing a performance of a record that I had produced a million years ago for my dear friend Heather Christian. She's one of my best friends in the world, and we made this at that studio in Sunset Park, the first place that I really went full-time freelance, just as a total work of joy. Just like, we love each other, let's make some fucking work together, this shit rules, let's go. And so the Oklahoma City Ballet decided to do a performance to this record and several of the other works that we've made together in the past. And so we went, just as a like, I haven't seen you in a couple years, let's fucking do it. But I have some other homies down there, so that turned into some work. So I did a gig with an artist down there called Aaron Newberry, who's become a wonderful new friend and is very talented. And then this week, what am I doing? Yeah, just David Simon stuff. Just finished the second episode. I finished all the V1 writing for the second episode. It's off to Kris for reviews, and then we'll see.
Yeah, so it's all like, you're just like interested in, like, kind of like we were talking about earlier. It's just like, if it piques your curiosity, you're down to work on it.
100%.
And
man.
It's all over. It's the whole gamut.
I'm working on pitching like a product right now as well. I've got a couple of product designs that I'm working on.
Really?
Yeah. And actually my personal passion project, the thing that I'm working on that I'm most excited about as a creative right now, is I'm writing a TV show.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
How do you do all of this?
I don't know, man. I don't sleep a lot, and like I said, I don't have a kid. I don't like have much of a social life these days either because of Rona. So that's changing, but you know.
Right, now that there's a war in Ukraine, we can just pretend that Corona doesn't exist.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that's where the culture has kind of gone. I do want to ask in terms of like, you know, all the film scoring and stuff. Are you working in Atmos? Are you working in 5.1? Like, what does that kind of setup look like, and how are you making that work?
So usually I find the output channel width is dependent on the kind of production you're dealing with. So if you're dealing with a production that's ultimately going to land in Atmos, usually they're going to want stereo stems so that they can do the positional mixing themselves. Unless you're like really in it and you're going to be turning over positional mixes that'll just play straight, like you're like the score mixer that Warner Brothers hires or whatever, like you're Alan Meyerson or something. So when like we did Space Jam, right, the new Legacy, and I did a bunch of Chris's killed that shit, and I did a bunch of drums for him on that and was kind of helping him produce the percussion stuff. So he was having me do a bunch of additional production and drum programming and shit as we were demoing and getting stuff through the director. And then that all went off to Meyerson to do records. And Justin and Meyerson and Kris went to Village Recorder, Justin Brown again, and they did a bunch of recording that Meyerson handled. Those tracks got shipped to his assistant to edit and clean up. Then they got shipped back to me to do a final kind of pass on combining everything and like making sure all the production elements and all the acoustic stuff all still works and phases are cool and any kind of last little tweaks to the writing and stuff. And so then I did one last kind of final coagulation and sent that off to Alan. But like he wanted stereo because he's got his own whole matrix that he's going to put that stuff out through for a delivery like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, so he does all the like Atmos figuration. Like he takes your stereo stems and does all that, or he mixes in stereo.
Well, Alan Meyerson is like, take a look at his IMDb if you're not aware of him. But
I mean, I know who he is. Yeah,
okay. Yeah. He's the GOAT. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how many channel configurations that he's outputting for a movie like Space Jam, but like 7, I don't know, like there's got to be a stereo down mix. There's probably a 5.1 down mix. There's got to be an Atmos for sure. And who knows how many configuration Atmos deliveries are needed there,
But you don't necessarily need any sort of Atmos or 5.1 rig to do the work you're doing. Stereo is adequate.
I do have a 5.1 rig here and I do mix in 5.1. And so for example, again, for Madden, we delivered in 5.1. So the stereo mixes were actually only used for referencing. Like production would get the mixes to take a listen to. And frankly, I don't think my mixes even play in the game. My stems play in the game so that they can do whatever they do with the sort of user-defined interactions layers with the audio, right? Like your pizza shows up and the leitmotif is playing huge. You hit pause, the drums mute, the brass mutes. You know what I mean? Like it has user-related interaction, and it's because of their stem player, right? It's like what Kanye just put up. Mm-hmm. So for that, they not only do they want 5.1 and stereo mixes and stems, they also want 5.1 stems because that's the way that their stem players configure it. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So I don't have an Atmos rig here currently, and I have a whole diatribe that I can go on to about why I think Atmos, as the reason that it's being pushed, is mastered for iTunes too. So I haven't made that great step forward.
I'm curious to hear the diatribe. I've heard some really interesting diatribes about Atmos on this podcast.
You bet. I bet. Yeah.
I have mixed feel. My feeling is I know a lot of people are really excited about it, but my gut feeling is meh.
Let me ask you a simple question. Do you know a single person that has an Atmos playback system?
Not a single person.
Not a single fucking person.
Yeah.
And the only Atmos playback system that everybody's going to end up getting is AirPod Pros.
Right.
So
exactly.
What I'm really not stoked about it is the just inevitable phase.
Yes.
Codec decorrelation weirdness that's going to happen. I just can only imagine that's going to be great. But also, look, don't spit at the ocean, right? Like, it's coming. So
I don't know. I'm not sure. I think it might flop. I don't know. We'll see.
I'll tell you why I think you're wrong there, and that's because
please do.
Amazon and Netflix are now requiring Atmos deliveries for all films. And
no shit.
Yeah, and the reason there is because it's channel agnostic. So as consumer playback systems continue to evolve and change, theoretically something that's been delivered for Atmos is future-proofed, which salt that shit with the way that technology has always evolved, but that's the idea. So I do a lot of sound editing and sound design too. Not that much these days because it crushes my soul a little bit, but I have done a lot of that work. Like the last movie that I was put up for A24, like they needed an Atmos delivery because it was something that was required of them on Amazon. So even if it's something that the production company doesn't really give a shit about, it's something that their distributors are requiring. So, and that's the same, of course, with Apple. So if it's being required at a distributor IP delivery level, then it's gonna take over the market, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know. I don't think Atmos is going anywhere in terms of film. I'm thinking with music, it's not really gonna take off because who's gonna? I mean, and the thing that you said about phase, like when I heard, when I was hearing the Atmos mixes on headphones binaurally, which is the only way I've ever been able to hear it.
Exactly.
Is like that the bass doesn't knock the same way it does in stereo.
It definitely doesn't. Yeah, it's Dolby Pro Logic 2. It's the same shit. It's like phase extrapolation from a stereo file, which I don't know. That kind of destructive filtering is cool as an effect, but so that Apple can sell some headphones that have positional head tracking, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yeah,
if
it's
that's
not
cool.
the same. When the voodoo hits in the low end, it hits that in a very specific way that's cool about stereo. You know
Precisely.
what I mean?
Yeah, precisely.
And so that's why my gut feeling is it's going to flop with music in the end, but it definitely will be around for film. Like that's not going anywhere. That's
Well,
for sure.
again, I question that because of the consumer playback format, right? Like everybody in the world listens to music on their phone first now.
Right.
So Apple gets to kind of define how we play a little bit. Like that's the shitty thing about them, right? Right before this podcast, for example, I've been like dealing with, I found an old laptop and like found all of my email M boxes from that laptop, like the whole mailbox structure file or whatever. And so I've been like dealing with migrating all that stuff and trying to catalyze. And basically I'm inbox zeroing myself from fucking 2004, which is a truly quixotic, hateful, self-loathing act.
Why are you doing this?
It's not important or interesting, but I'm doing it. And trying to do that with the tools that Apple have given us is truly, I want to murder suicide everything. It's the worst.
Oh man, just stop for your own sake. Maybe I don't know. You do you. It's your choice. It's your life.
Yeah, exactly.
Inbox zero is a great concept, but it's like in reality, it's like a shit show.
Well, when I say inbox zero, what I mean is like anything that's personal is going in here. Receipts are going in here. You know what I mean? I'm just like,
right. You're categorizing it.
I'm like dealing with it in a way that I can like delete a bunch of shit and then not feel like I have to hold on to those files in the same kind of way. You know?
Right. You want to let go of it.
I want to let go of it. I deleted my Facebook a couple years back. That was deeply, deeply healing.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
I can't recommend it highly enough.
Yeah, I wish I could. I maybe it's FOMO. Maybe it's like fear of missing out. But
you
like,
can look. I have no Facebook.
Right. Well, you do have an IG. You do have an IG, which is very close.
Strictly elective. Also, they feel very different.
That's true. It's way less depressing.
Oh my God, son. I was on Facebook a couple years back, and the thing that catalyzed it for me was like I was just reading one day, and it was like an ad for Applebee's. Your friend's banned. The woman that you lost your virginity to has cancer. Your other friend's banned. Somebody's sandwich. Holy shit. Did you hear that the girl that you lost your virginity to has cancer? You know what I'm saying? Like, and it was just presented in this. I realized that the information as it's being presented to us now has become totally flattened. It's like totally democratized. There's no hierarchical importance in the way this information is presented. And that is so deeply unsettling, right? Like that I have to like ignore someone's gig request and like find out this information about an intimate whom I have lost touch with over these many years but still feel fondly for. And like then what's appropriate? Like do I like reach out to this person? Do I like make it about me in that way? Do I like try to be like, oh my God, I'm sorry, but then they have to make me feel better? Like what the fuck, dude? And then like having debates ontologically about viewpoint that feels like you're having a debate about fact. Like all of it is just such a shit show. So yeah. I don't know, man. And, on Instagram, it's like at least people are like a little bit more chuffed, generally.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. It's a way less depressing environment, and it's just kind of like, okay, we're here for funsies and for connection, and that's it.
Less intrinsically pugnacious, I feel.
Yeah, I guess so.
You know, like if you want to fight, go to Twitter and then Facebook and then Instagram. I feel like that's the way it goes.
Right.
I'm not on Twitter anymore either, really.
Yeah, I can't even try to keep up with Twitter. Twitter just gave me anxiety, so I didn't even bother with it.
Exactly.
It was too much for me. I do. Let's chat a little bit about your approach to recording and mixing, because that's kind of where the heart of I guess my podcast generally kind of drifts towards eventually.
Oh sure, yeah.
I know you have some very specific opinions about a lot of things. Let's just start with bass, because that's the source for you and for me as well. So tell me about your fat subby neo soul bass tones, how to get it in the mix. What's your approach?
Well, God damn it, man! We're gonna have to get pretty philosophical first. You know,
Please.
There's no like. I find those mixing cheat sheets to be anathema. So there's not going to be any version of this conversation where I'm like, it's 60 hertz, bro. The entirety.
No, of course not.
You know what I mean?
Of course not.
For me, bass, like, look, like the other thing I would say at the beginning of all this conversation about anything technique related or process wise, like, I really feel like there's never any acknowledgement about the fact that there's no objective quality. right? And especially, I feel like I hear this so much, especially now from musicians who are transitioning into recording more, or people who are interested but feel like they are lacking some essential thing in order to do what they need to do. So before I talk anything about anything what I do, I just want to say very clearly that it's purely my subjective perspective, and it has nothing